Not only could I not afford to be at this wedding, there would be absolutely no one inviting either me or my mother over to their house to tell me about the secret that occurred at this wedding. And throughout my entire childhood, I'd be working hard with my mother. Neither one of us would be invited to anyone's house so that they could tell us about whatever it was that happened at this wedding. And nor could we afford to be at this wedding. Because a woman working at fast food restaurants as a single mother could only afford to take her child so many places. So basically, I knew for a fact that law enforcement had just confessed to me about a crime that they covered over and about a crime that they knew about. Some things that you have to keep in consideration here. The new narrator was obviously doing all of this due to extreme envy of me and my brain savant. Assad wanted my brain savant locked up. After spending so much time having law enforcement put up things on my TV home screen that said things around the line of, "Hello, brother," with a Coke bottle over there and this and that. And only to now try to lock up my brain savant enviously. The only thing about it is just the fact that Assad would be fully involved and present in whatever the crime scene was for the wedding. Not only that, whatever Bushra Akhtar was trying to tell me in 2019, that I abruptly stopped her in the middle and told her, well, I've never known anything before in my life. I don't want to know now. The reason I said that was because when I was a child, obviously, I didn't know anything or anyone or anything of that sort. And by now, things had changed a lot. And so, basically, yeah, I didn't want to know. And by changed a lot, I mean, my sister's gotten her MBA. She's doing great, you know. I've got my PharmD, and I could work and have the hopes of being able to give my board exam someday. So people actually do come over to our house and meet us now, even though it's nothing even all that great, but it's still better than living in absolute poverty that I used to live in as a child when I barely ever saw anyone at all. So I told Bushra Akhtar in 2019, I said, look, I don't want to know what you're trying to tell me. And I can guarantee the courts that not only would Assad be present at this wedding, know about the wedding incident or the crime that occurred, he knew about whatever it was that Bushra Akhtar was trying to tell me in 2019. And also the fact that, and also every single thing that could be considered bad, except for this, that law enforcement would have covered over and that they would have known about. Assad would know about it as well. And the really ironic part is Assad was the one who was trying to enviously lock up my brain savant over here right now. Just comes to show exactly what kind of work law enforcement has been doing. All they've done so far is enviously try to frame me, despite them having done nothing but sex schemes and money fraud the entire time. Since 2001, all law enforcement's done is run sex schemes with Uncle Joey's in-laws, followed by money fraud. And my history shows that ever since I was a child, all I've done is work hard with my mother. After all the false testimonies that law enforcement helped make November 20th with the false testimony given to my dad, the greedy framer, and his framer sisters that law enforcement was fully involved in. They knew about, even though the informant was governor informant, they knew about, and they were the ones planning on doing so. Since before I even left for Moscow, Russia, law enforcement was panicking, and they were really scared. They were scared that that I might have known about all their false testimonies from before, and that this one might get caught. Meaning because before I went there, I told them about all the ones that I knew about, due to which they panicked a lot before I went to Russia. And so November 20th, then you had mid-January 2026 with a 10-year-old child testifying 25 years later. Then you had more set of lies early March 2026 that were caught with the government informant again. Then given to my dad, the greedy framer, and his framer sisters. Then you had group chat false testimony coming out of my overseas pharmacy school. Then you had more set of lies that my dad, the greedy framer, and his framer sisters were given again, that were caught through phone conversations having to be retrieved. Yeah, after all these false testimonies that law enforcement has worked on, they cannot make any more with anyone buying any of it. So the only thing that's left is obviously, they use drugs to make me forget. The only thing that's left is law enforcement's talking point that when I was a child, someone might have said something bad around me when I was a child. Now, we got to remember, this is saying and not doing. What my dad was doing in 2011 was he was recruiting people for mass murder from his house, giving sermons to people in large groups every single day, because people think that he is some sort of a guy with mystical powers to get their prayers answered, which is why he has a 5-foot-long beard. And they would go to his house in large groups and he would give them sermons. What they didn't know is my dad, the greedy framer, does things like ask law enforcement to ask me if I was willing to commit incest with his sister on March 7th 3 times. Asked law enforcement to ask me if I was willing to commit incest with his other sister on March 10th and every single day afterwards. Asked law enforcement to ask me on March 12th if I was willing to sleep with his ugly, old, disgusting-looking wife on March 12th. All for money, because he knew that the second set of lies that he was making after the November 20th false testimony was already caught, that these were going to get caught as well because they had already been confessed to the government informant as being completely false and fabricated. Yeah, this is the level of greed that my dad, the greedy framer, showed after his envy of trying to lock up my brain savant so my mother couldn't get any of the money was already caught. So, yeah, what my dad, the greedy framer, was doing in 2011 was he was recruiting people for joining terror groups and to commit mass murder, and he was giving sermons on it from his house every single day in 2011. You could check the records, and law enforcement tipped him off, despite this not being law enforcement's work, and their work being to send in someone to check to see if he was really doing this or not, or what he was doing and how many people actually joined terror groups, because of my dad, the greedy framer, in 2011. But that's not what law enforcement did. What law enforcement did was just go up to him and tell him, look, man, we're trying to run sex schemes and money fraud over here, and you're being a nuisance over here. So can you just stop with this jihad stuff till he's gone, like Hassan's gone, then you could restart it again. So basically that is what happened. Now, the thing about it is, the talking point that law enforcement has is, after all the false testimonies have been caught, is someone might have said, not did, but someone might have said something bad around me when I was a child. Not even a mentally mature child, because after I gained, even the slightest bit of mental maturity, my mother did not need to leave me behind with anyone ever again. She could just leave me at home. On February 15, 8:30 p.m., without me ever telling her what the right or wrong answer was, my mother said it herself. Until you were an old enough child, I could not leave you at home alone. So basically, that is what happened. And my mother used to leave me there, any place that would watch me for free, till I became a mentally mature enough child. Now, someone might have said something bad around me when I was a child. You got to remember certain things. First of all, that's saying and not doing. And the other thing is, I was a child and not an adult. Children are not liable under law. The third thing is, my mother would not be present there, which means that my mother is not liable. The fourth thing is, if anyone did say anything bad around me, only thing that law enforcement did afterwards is run sex schemes and money fraud with that individual since that time till now. And the other thing that I have to remind everyone is the fact that my mother, despite being watched 24/7, never uttered one bad word considered bad her entire life. And the other thing is, as soon as I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, I was never found near any one of law enforcement's BFFs saying anything even remotely considered bad ever again. Which means that you're comparing a child around whom someone might have said something bad only when they were a child, only due to the dependency of a single mother, only while the single mother was not even there and working in fast food restaurants, and only while the child was still not even a mentally mature enough child yet, where someone could have said and not did, unlike what was going on in 2011 with my dad, someone could have said something bad around the child. And you want to blame the child for that decades later, since the war occurred when I was a child. And you want to blame the child for that, but you don't want to blame the adult for that. Why not? Because law enforcement's been running sex schemes and money fraud with all the adults from then till now. And the only reason law enforcement's been trying to use this talking point is due to the fact that all their false testimonies have failed, each and every one, and they found absolutely nothing against me throughout the entire year of 2025, except for the fact that I worked really, really hard my entire life. This means that law enforcement only has their talking point now, where they could claim that someone might have said something bad around me as a child and try to blame the child for it, even though the mother would not be present there working at fast food restaurants, basically taking advantage of a single mother's poverty and dependency. But some facts have to be considered. First fact is, I would never be present in that setting ever again as soon as I would gain the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, which would mean that I would never be present there. I would only be working hard with my mother, never present anywhere else except for my own house, working hard throughout the entire time as soon as I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child. And the way we know about this so well is due to the fact that the wedding incident that law enforcement tried to put on me and frame me for in the year 2023, after running their sex schemes and money fraud the entire year of 2023, especially with the November 2023 funeral incident where they tried to, get me to help Uncle Joey with a sex scheme ad. I was not even present at this funeral. I could not be present there, nor was I ever invited to anyone's house who would tell either me or my mother about any kind of secrets about things that occurred at any weddings. Poverty was a blessing in disguise for me. And I learned that in 2023 when they tried to frame me for a wedding incident. And all I wanted to tell law enforcement was, this wedding I could not afford to be at. I can tell you that much right now. And nor did I have enough money for anyone to invite me over to their house and tell me about an incident that occurred at a wedding either. Which means that this wedding incident is a confession by law enforcement for an incident and a crime that they covered over and they're fully involved for, especially considering the fact that they're trying this on after August 25th, 2023, after I won my case. And the entire year of 2023, that same year, all law enforcement did was run money fraud and sex schemes to the point that they were running their sex scheme ad for Uncle Joey so aggressively at the funeral in November 2023 that Parvez Elahi in Pakistan started quoting Uncle Joey with the words Asan Faramosh, meaning ungrateful child. Yeah. So basically, law enforcement's talking point is this: that someone might have said something, and that saying and not doing something around the child when I was a child, less than, not even mentally mature enough child yet in life. But the only problem with that is law enforcement cannot say this talking point themselves. So they have to give it to someone who does not have any talking points, or their talking points are all caught. I guess, I don't know, someone like Assad. The only problem with that is Assad happens to be one of the people that the courts have just found to have been involved in everything as an adult around the wedding incident, whatever Busher Akhtar was trying to tell me. Sorry, they drugged me, so I can't talk. Whatever Busher Akhtar was trying to tell me, and every single thing else that I do not even know about. And that Assad knew about all of this as an adult, not as a child, and that law enforcement's last talking point, that law enforcement could not say that someone said something bad around me as a child, due to the fact that whoever could have said something bad around me as a child, law enforcement had been running sex schemes with them and their in-laws since 2001, like how it happened with Uncle Joey, just in case Uncle Joey said something bad around me as a child. And I never saw him ever again after that. You could tell from the conversation with my mother from Russia that my mother told me not to ever go near him ever again, which I never did despite law enforcement trying. And law enforcement cannot say this talking point anymore due to that fact. They're not letting me talk. The fact that whoever could have said something bad around me as a child, they want the child blamed for it, but they don't want the adult blamed for it. Which makes absolutely no sense whatsoever, considering the fact that the child was never seen around that adult ever again as soon as he gained even the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, because the mother no longer needed that child adult supervised by anyone anymore. Which means that law enforcement had been BFFs with that individual who could have said something bad around the child. And remember, that saying and not doing, and what my dad was doing in 2011 was extremely dangerous. But let's just say that this is the last thing that law enforcement wants to now use due to all their false testimonies being caught and finding anything against me throughout the entire year of 2025. Well, even this last thing that law enforcement wants to use against me, they cannot. Since even after I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, I was never seen in that setting ever again. Whereas law enforcement had been BFFs with that individual, I can guarantee, running sex schemes and money fraud with them from that time till now. So law enforcement is now going to give that talking point to someone like Assad. Well, Assad's been present in every setting as an adult. He's been involved in the crime that occurred at the wedding. He knew about what was going on with Busher Akhtar when she was trying to tell me. He knew about and was involved in much more as an adult, never reported a single thing. I was only present anywhere if I was as a child while my mother worked at fast food restaurants, only as a child and only until I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child. And remember, if anyone did say anything bad around me, it's only saying and not doing. And what my dad was doing in 2011 was extremely dangerous. So this last talking point law enforcement cannot use due to the fact that even today, law enforcement is running their sex schemes and money fraud till this very day today. Uncle Joey's in-laws, sex schemes, and money fraud that's being wire transferred till this very day as we speak. So basically, this last talking point that law enforcement has, they cannot use themselves. They have to give it to someone like Assad, or they have to give it to someone like my dad, the Greedy Framer, or his Framer sisters. There is something that you have to consider about my dad, the Greedy Framer's sisters. Let's say Farah, the Greedy Framer. In the entire year of 2024, Farah, the Greedy Framer was running after me to try to get me to marry her daughter. Every single day on YouTube, I would see the ad for Harbor Freight every single day, all day long, with the Hercules hammer on there. And the only reason I would see that was because one of her daughters said to me one time that I look like Hercules. And so basically they would put that ad on my YouTube all day, night long. Not only that, you also had the Sheba Fancy Feast cat food ad. And you had all kinds of ads. All kinds of ads on there. Very weird and disgusting. And it pretty much was an early example of incest that Farah, the Greedy Framer, tried recently on March 7, 2026. And she was trying to basically commit incest as an advertisement being sent to me in the year 2024 to try to get me to marry her daughter or one of her daughters. And basically, now this is not undeniable because she tried it 3 times on March 7, 2026, sending me a porn star named Sunny Leon's picture with her name Farah on it. She also sent it to me on February 11th. That was actually my dad, the Greedy Framer, who sent it to me February 11th. Shamelessly, he sent it to me February 11th after panicking and calling me 22 minutes past midnight on February 11th, and then sending me 3:17 a.m. on February 11th, porn star named Sunny Leone's picture with Fur the Greedy Framer's name on it, and then also sending me that same night, 3:56 a.m., a picture of a woman resembling his ugly sister from Florida, to try to get me to commit incest with someone or pick up his phone at 22 minutes past midnight that same night, only because my dad, the Greedy Framer, had been told by the courts that my brain savant getting freed was inevitable and he wanted illegal assurances of money. It was either that or he was caught with another lie. So Fur the Greedy Framer tried entire year of 2024 to try to run after me, sending me ads for things like Harbor Freight for her daughter, for me to marry her daughter. And also she would send me Sheba Fancy Feast cat food ad to try to get me basically advertisement for incest, so that I would marry her daughter and she would also try to commit incest with me. She has very bad habits. What can I say? I never thought she would go this far for money, but she did. And then she ran after me, having law enforcement. Now you can check with law enforcement these facts. She had law enforcement put up Harbor Freight Hercules ad on my YouTube all day and night long from morning till night, along with this Sheba Fancy Feast cat food ad and a whole bunch of other ads on there for her daughter, to try to get me to marry her daughter. She even tried to do things like she called my school English teacher and yelled at her, claiming to be a close relative. And you know how much of a close relative for the Greedy Framer is when she tried to frame me on November 20th by prepping her sister. Or, yeah, she probably did. It was probably her sister, one of her sisters, who made the false testimony against me on November 20th, 2025. So basically, yeah. And then recently, yeah, and the entire year of 2024, Fur the Greedy Framer was running after me for her daughter, to try to get me to marry her daughter. And then when she saw that there were other people in line, she found out who the other people were. Then she called my school English teacher, yelled at her, pretending to be a close relative, and she's no close relative of mine, okay? And just to try to get her out of the way. When she was done yelling at my school English teacher, she said some very embarrassing and humiliating things about me to try to get the other girls to go away. The other girls did not go away. They wanted to stay in line. So then after that, Fur the Greedy Framer went back to trying to run after me again for her daughter, putting the Harbor Freight ads on my TV, sending me a message every single time there was an occasion that occurred. And right now during this trial, all kinds of really weird things occurring. Fur the Greedy Framer on February 7th, after the courts basically were not stupid. And the courts realized that if these people, like Fur the Greedy Framer, were told that my brain savant's about to get freed, all these talking points that they had that were not even theirs, given to them by law enforcement, they would take it, they would throw it in the trash, and they would then try to greedily run after me for money. That's exactly what happened. The courts told these people that my brain savant was about to get freed on February 8th. They just told them, they were like, look, we're going to give our verdict on February 8th. And the courts pretended like they were giving the verdict in my favor. On February 7th, I was blackmailed 20 times by all of these Framer sisters, including offering the Greedy Framer, the big fat perverted weirdo, and spokesperson's mother. She blackmailed me 13 times in one day on February 7th, and Fur the Greedy Framer blackmailed me that day on February 7th again. What does this mean? This means that these same people that were pretending to the courts that they were helping the courts get to the bottom of the truth, even after November 20th, being caught trying to frame me, were doing what? Taking those same talking points after they were caught trying to frame me on November 20th, trying talking points to still enviously lock up my brain savant, only to then take those same talking points that Fire the Greedy Framer took and threw it in the trash on February 7th, only to try to greedily make a deal based on the illegal assurances of money on February 7th numerous times. Only because they thought that my brain savant would get freed on February 8th, and blackmail only works when the person is still in a state of fear. I would not be scared anymore if the verdict was in my favor on February 8th, which means that if they would send me these requests on February 9th, I would take it and I would throw it in the trash. So Fur the Greedy Framer took all her talking points on February 7th, 2026, and she threw it in the trash, only to greedily try to blackmail me, to force me to call her on February 7th, obviously only to make illegal assurances of money to her before my brain savant could even get freed. So the same person who was trying to take talking points from law enforcement that were not hers anymore, because her talking point was on November 20th, that had already been caught as being a lie. And so basically she took talking points from law enforcement and she was repeating those to try to enviously lock up my brain savant so that the money could not go to anyone else's daughter that didn't go to her daughter. She takes those same talking points, she throws it in the trash, Fur the Greedy Framer does, only to try to blackmail me with trying to force me to call her before February 8th. Fur the Greedy Framer also then blackmail me with price tags of money in the millions of dollars, including a $60 million blackmail price tag that was coming from Florida that came to me 9 times through law enforcement, only to try to get me to give them illegal assurances of money every time their lies would get caught. Their lies were caught early March 2026 when government informant, they found out who it was and that they had already confessed to the government informant whatever the statements that they were using against me in early March 2026 as being lies. Due to which mid-March 2026, the government informant comes out and tells everyone that these were lies as well. And so, yeah, the blackmail price tags for $60 million were sent to me 9 times coming from Florida. Basically, Fur the Greedy Framer ran after me the entire year of 2024. When she saw that I was not interested in her daughter and that there were other people in line, like my English teacher, she called that English teacher, pretended to be a household member, and yelled at that English teacher to try to back her away. She even tried to send advertisements for incest by Sheepish Fancy Foods cat food ad long before the incest request sent to me on March 7th, 2026, 3 times using the porn star name Sunny Leone's picture sent to me 3 times on that morning. Just like how it was sent to me on the night of February 11th after my dad was panicking and calling me frantically 22 minutes past midnight. Then he sends me a porn star's picture with his sister Fur's name on it at 3:17 a.m., followed by a picture of a woman resembling his disgusting, ugly-looking sister from Florida at 3:56 a.m. that same night, February 11th. Fur the Greedy Framer even tried to send me advertisement for incest, along with advertisements for her daughter with the Harbor Freight ad. And seeing that there were other people in there, she tried to push them away. And then seeing that there were other people still in there, she was trying to say humiliating and degrading things about me. And as soon as she would say all these things about me, she would go right back to trying to run after me by sending me text messages at every single occasion that would occur and telling law enforcement to keep sending me those Harbor Freight ads for her daughter again. Yes. And then when she saw that there were too many people involved that wanted to come after me, since law enforcement had told the entire city about my brain savant by July 1st, 2023, something I had never told anyone about, what Fur the Greedy Framer did was she tried to make a false testimony against me on November 20th, 2025. People should be looked at by their actions and not their words. All Farah the Greedy Framer has done till now is run after me, and when she saw that there were too many people running after me, and that my Brain Savant money would go to these people instead of her daughter, whom she was sending those ads for, even ads for incest on March 7, 2026, 3 times, and incest with Sheba Fancy Food cat food ad with her daughter's ad being sent to me for me going to her daughter. When she saw that there was too many people involved and there's too much competition, she tried to help her sister frame me on November 20th, 2025, only to get caught. And then when she saw that on February 8th, my Brain Savant was about to get freed, all these talking points that she got from law enforcement, she took and she threw in the trash, only to try to run after me then. This is Farah the Greedy Framer. These are her actions. So you can only tell that what the fact of the matter is that her motive would be. Her motive is only to try to enviously lock up my Brain Savant so that no other person's daughter would get the money that her daughter could not get. And if she fails in doing so, then she tries to greedily run after me, sending me a porn star named Sunny Leon's picture 3 times on March 7, 2026, with her name Farah on it. You have to judge people by their actions and not their words. And even on February 7, 2026, Farah the Greedy Framer takes all these talking points that she was arguing against me very aggressively in court, throws it in the trash, only to try to run after me the entire day to try to force me to call her. And if I would call her, all she would do is try to make illegal assurances of money with me. That was a known fact. And it became a known fact even more after February 17th at 3:02 a.m. when all of these people found out that my Brain Savant getting freed was inevitable, due to which they no longer try to just send me blackmails with their names on it, or Martha Stewart written on it, or something of that sort of nature with an alias name on it anymore. Instead, they would send me blackmail price tags of millions of euros coming from my dad, who blackmailed me with price tags of 8.9 million euros 19 times on the morning of February 19th. Same man who refused to acknowledge that there was even a Brain Savant. He would make jokes about it to try to make everyone feel like he didn't even believe in it, and that, yeah, he wasn't enviously trying to lock up my Brain Savant so my mother couldn't get the money. Only for him, starting February 17th at 3:02 a.m., give me a list of things, disgusting list of things, like a $25 million Rolls Royce, $500,000 Rolls Royce. He wants a $25 million one, only to irritate and harass me. So I would get irritated and harassed, feeling inside like he was going to steal all my money as soon as my Brain Savant would get freed. And he sent me 19 times on the morning of February 19th, 8